Hello my friends, welcome to another episode of Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor Martyr. My name is Wilfred. So in this video, I'd like to share with you my build for the Crusader. And I've played this game more than 900 hours, 918 to be exact. Crusader was my very first class that I played. Back then, of course, I didn't know what to do with the game, and over time I play other classes as well. If you are interested in guides for those classes, I put the link below. And I've recently revisited the Crusader again. I really like this heavy flamer build, and I play it so much. I farm so hard that I actually, as a byproduct, I managed to get to #1 in the one of the weekly glory leaderboards. I've never done that before, and there are still thousands of people playing this game, so I was quite surprised and happy. But that shows how much I really put into this Crusader and how effective this Crusader is. Really, it's high mobility, very high mobility, built around crit and rage, hit damage over time and area as well. Clear speed is amazing. Managed to do very comfortably +10 above, +15 supreme mission for the Void Crusade farming is really no problem at all. Very fun to play, very simple to play as well. There's only kind of like 2 channel skill that you have to pick one to use, and 2 AoE layer with other utility stuff going on. And it's a lot of debuff as well. I'll show you how in this one here. I can blind, slow, short, not bad, and also the vulnerability. But the only thing that I'd like to comment about the downside of playing a Crusader to me is I think it's very fun for all the builds that you play at the early game, but once you get to the end game, the path to success become quite narrow. What I mean by that is that there are, to me, there's only one weapon that I really prefer to use. Others are fun while you level, but when it comes to end game, it's just not that effective. And also, I found that there's only that much room to maneuver through the passive as well. So I'll touch down on that in a bit. Right. Now, if you look at the Heavy Flamer, and Heavy Flamer has has 4 ability, but there are 2 channeled skills. So one is the Flame Cone, which you close a distance between yourself and your enemies. So you're advancing yourself as you channel the skill. The Disengaging Stream is the one that you disengage from the enemy, so you get further as you do damage. The 2 of them are very similar in DPS on paper. Disengaging Stream to me is a stronger candidate. 2 reasons. One is, of course, the high suppression, so you get 200% suppression damage, very good for bosses or hard enemies. It also helps you to distance yourself from the enemy. Sometimes the bosses can have pretty harmful damage over time on the ground and so on, so you like to just get away a little bit further from those enemies. And I also found that disengaging streams are easier to apply rather than Flame Cone. Flame Cone, you really need to target on some enemy to get closer of the distance, and it's a lot easier to apply for disengaging. But that is just my take. Flame Cone is good if you are very close to the targets, because it does have 30% damage against the target closer to you. And if you pick some perks that really focusing on your close quarter kind of the damage style, you can do that too. There's no hard and fast rule, but there are 2 skills that you can pick from. And then you have 2 other AoE layers as well. Those are with cooldown, and the Scorch Earth as well as Phosphorus Splash. One is area impact, the other one is persistent to the target. Now, there are weapons that will provide you with the variation of those 2 skills, denoted with the color, red color there. If you compare the left and the right, by the way, there's a bug on the calculation of DPS. Obviously, one of them is wrong, it's just too much. But the difference between the red one and the orange one is that the cooldown is much shorter, so of course that will up the DPS itself, and also there has a lot more debuff on the Phosphorus Splash on the red one. So obviously the red one is good, better. The only thing is that your weapon can get overheated very fast because of the fact that you keep popping all those damage, but it's just a bit of trade-off there. There are 2 other abilities as well. Assault Jump is from the armor. This gives you every 4.6 seconds to use focus to just leap across the map, so it's very, very helpful. Both areas, Force Field is a must for this build. When you get close to the bosses and when things get really hard, then you pop the invulnerability kind of shield and you are shielded for 5 seconds. That's pretty good. And for a 9-second kind of like ability, you're almost like, you can pop it rather often there. But of course, there's a charge there as well. You can't pop it too often. How to play this build? It's actually very easy compared to other classes. You just kind of jump right into the action, and with the right perk you will gain a buff both for damage, offensive, as well as for defensive, and then you just kind of layer the 2 deep AoE that I've already mentioned earlier on. Use one of the channel skill and you keep popping around to keep the buff on, and that is about it. And if you get an overheat, just use your second set of weapon. Now there are 3 different armors to use as for other classes. The only one I would recommend to you is the assault armor. Now the reason why is that it gives you the mobility. It doesn't really do a lot of damage, but with the good right kind of like mobility, it does knock down not bad as well if it's for suppressed enemies. And the great thing about this assault jump is it just consumes focus. There's nothing else. It's not a belt item. You just jump. The other 2 I've used as well. One is the sentry, which is like a pop a turret somewhere, but those usually are quite weak at endgame. Missile launcher also, it doesn't seem to do much as well, and both have animation lag. So you suddenly your character just freeze for a while, just deploy the turret or just shoot those missile. And I don't like the kind of like animation lock. And it's not good DPS anyway. So just stick with the assault armor, and if you compare the prefixes, it's all the same: damage reduction, or resist, and maximum HP. So there's no variation on that. So just pick this one. Now, from the attribute point of view, sorry, jump a bit here and there. From the attribute point of view, the warfare, toughness, and virtue, it go without saying, both warfare and toughness are really, really good for the Crusader. So just stick with that. Just use max those two. As for the virtue, I think up until tier 2 is good enough. You could actually go for tier 3 as well, depending on what kind of like gear, especially ancient gear that you use. My take is that +1 focus per second is very good if you do assault jump a lot. But I found that even for the biggest map, even if I pop the assault jump all the time, I can reach the end of the map, well, towards the end of the map by the time I finish all my focus. So you don't really need the +1 focus per second in this build. The focus is just for jumping around. There's no other thing to it. All right. Now, passive wise, I've done a lot of experimentation on this one. I've done a lot. I spent a lot of time trying to study and do a little bit. Squeeze out the most from the passive trees. Health, defense, and suppression to me is always a very important thing. So try to get as much of this as possible, at least the relevant notes. Between Puritan and Radical, people ask me all this question all the time. If you are looking for morality relics, which I am using morality relics, is very helpful for the Puritan path, especially it has the supreme damage. Crit hit chance, that's very nice, or other things that you could use as well. Radical is very niche. For this build it won't work, but maybe for other builds. All right. Then without saying, I always have the crit hit, the pair with the hit attack. I use hits a lot in this game. Lately I've been building everything against with the hits, so it's hit and crit. It covers majority of the build out there. Then I've tried many other things, and I've come to a conclusion that both area and damage over time are very, very nice to my build, because my build does a lot of it's all fully area for the entire heavy flamer, and also it does a lot of damage over time. I further buff the damage over time. I also further have a stronger vulnerability debuff against the enemy affected by damage over time. So that's really, really good. I've tried other things like that. Range didn't quite work out. The buff didn't quite work out. Then Crusader has the execution as well as support. Support is for focus, kind of like a related gameplay. Execution is really more for melee, so none of them are really work for me. So this to me is the most optimal way. But what notes you pick really depends on the play style. So do experiment a little bit on that, because it depends on your gear progression. Some note may mean more to you than others, but in general, get to the end note to pick up some of these goodies. Okay, now perks wise, I've done a lot of experimentation with perks. Most perks don't really matter that much. There are some really good utilities one and so on. For this Crusader build, the only one that I would really recommend to you is the runic armor. That gives you the supreme damage reduction as well as the damage bonus whenever you use the armor skill, which you will use every 4.6 seconds. The buff lasts 10 seconds, so as though you have this damage reduction all the time. 10% is quite a fair bit. It's hard to get damage reduction for this particular setup, but this one to me is very important. Now he's saying, you could pick this, or you can pick other thing that is similar as well. The overheat per second reduction is kind of good, especially if I use the relics that has the variant of the skill that I can pop those cooldown skill more often. But do experiments. There are other stuff that add bonus in general. If you have the buff, the enemy, you have some bonus here and there. Just play around with it. It's not really going to make a big difference. It's really about play style. The reason why I picked the middle one, the persistent attrition, is because I've geared that once I blind the enemy, I can do something else with it, and it become a chain effect, so it become very nice. But do you need to have that? Not really. You don't have to blind. Blind is very nice. If the enemy is suppressed, blind the enemy have 50% chance to miss, so you get lesser damage against you. But you can actually pick other things like the Eternal Warrior if you want to as well. That is a very nice for you to have extra life and so on. Okay, now, if you look at the unbuffed stats on the right-hand side, these are all unbuffed. Of course, once you go in mission, once you start to pop things around, then all these numbers will go up. As I always say, get the resistance cap to 60%, right, or thereabout. I think don't need to overdo it. I think 60% is good. Try to get to the damage reduction of 60% above. I think that will help your character quite a fair bit on how to survive at the higher level map. Mine here is 52, but then I do have 10% from the perk that I mentioned earlier on, so that becomes 62%. So it's not too bad. If you can get some deflag, but don't go out of the way too much to try to get that. You should cap your crit chance to 50%. The reason why I can get 65% is due to the morality relics that give me another 15% supreme critical chance. That is very, very helpful, of course. But crit on itself is useless if you don't have the strength as well as damage to scale it up. So I would say you need the strength to be at least 85. The reason why 85 is that you want to be at minimum apply 100% stronger damage over time. Now, of course, as you get more strength, you get higher damage over time, but at least there's a guarantee there. So you roll a dice, 1 to 100, add to your strength, will become the one of the item, the chart that you see there in the middle. So work out some number. I get there about I think 106, and if I pop the inoculator, I get even higher. With some of these gear that I've got even higher. So for me, my guarantee is the next stage, which is basically the 300% damage as well as 100% stronger damage over time. So that is my yardstick, but you can work towards that. Crit damage is just get as much as you can. it's all gear dependent, and the rest of it just go for hit, AoE damage, or just normal damage, or even the damage over time damage. Okay. Now, the Psalm Doctrine and Archeotech Shards, like I said, I also have done a lot of research on this one, and I've done a lot of experimentation on this one as well. Now, you should have the hit damage bonus 70%. Can you have 125%? You could, but then that you sacrifice either the damaging aura, which hit aura is almost a must in many other builds, or the vulnerability stat, which I think is a vulnerability stat is much worth it. So have the hit damage bonus 3 codes on the inoculator, all right, and then you can have 4 Psalm code on the aura, which are on weapon. You have 2 free slot for shards, and then you can have a vulnerability stat, which is 300% more effective for damage over time. I find that it's really good to burn down enemies, but that would need 5 codes on the armor. Then you free 1 slot for the shard. So what to do with all the other shard slot? You can build towards your crit hit strength. I really strongly suggest you dump as much as you can. If your all resist is not, if a resistance is not kept, then you have to sacrifice some of this crit hit strength with the all resist. For the armor one, get damage reduction is really good. Damage over time is good for the weapon as well. Crit hit chance for the weapon if you need to pump it up to for the cap. You don't have to if you already reach a cap. There's a companion. I always point people towards that companion to see what Psalm code to use to form the Psalm Doctrine. So the link is just right there, or just Google for it. All right. Now, the gear-wise, like I said, Heavy Flamer is the one that I use. It's very impressive all-roundedness. I love the 2-layer of AoE. I love the channel skill back and forth. The morality relics that you see here, they give me the 15% supreme crit chance. So that is how, this is very awesome. The rest of it, just try to build towards more crit, more damage bonus, and bonus against the debuff enemies. For the second set, which you use, you can also pick a flamer, heavy flamer, which I've used that, but the one I've got there with the red kind of icon means that these are variants of the skill, more powerful, but of course at the cost of hit, and that you can again craft any other kind of affixes to it that's relevant to your build, or as much as you can afford. So that is the one I use. I could also use a multi-melter as well. I find a multi-melter is quite good as a feeler. It does have a few kind of long cooldown kind of thing, but they are very punchy, so it hit really hard, especially two of the skill. I believe 2 of the skill are a charge shot, so you can hold it for 1.5 seconds and release it. It gives you a much bigger kind of damage. So it's a good one. It's more fun as well, but it's very single target oriented for the multi-melter. It hits really hard, so I like it as a second set. You can have either one of them. There's no right or wrong answer. Just use the one that you feel comfortable playing. Now, the third set of gear that I would like to talk about is the Enrage gear. So I always like the Warbringer's Frenzy. It does have a very nice quality as well. Get a 6 fixes. It gives you Enrage token on crit hits, and since this is a crit build, getting 20 token, the maximum, is easy. If you have a Wrath implant like mine, then you can increase that to 30 Enrage token. So that is good. So yep, go for it. The second one is that get the Strike gear, of course, get as much as them as possible. It gives you a very nice, or the crit chance, strength, crit damage, whatever on crit. It's really nice, but don't overdo it. So long as you get to the crit cap, then you can just stop from there. Because beyond that, you well, it's a bit of trade off as well. See what you like to kind of trade off your crit hit with other things. But I think at least get a few of them. It's really good. The purity seal, I've tried many purity seal, and some of them on paper is better than others, especially when I compare one seal with another. But I picked this one because I need the all resist. Somehow it's just finding hard to cap the resistance. I don't know for this build, and also have the cooldown reduction. So a bit of movement speed doesn't hurt as well. So I can't pick this seal. You can pick any other thing as per your need. The debuff why, this is a little bit complicated. Just bear with me for a second. So I've got Rosario Force Field of Blindness. You don't have the farm for it. You don't have the farm for blindness, but I just happen to have it. Now the requirement for this is that you know, it will slow enemy if you do a blinding skill hit. And the only way to blind a target as a Crusader, there's no other way, is through a perk. And the perk is when I apply damage over time, which I do all the time, I blind the enemy as well. So I do blinding and then I slow. And then after I can also slow when I do a crit. I can do some hits, slow or not bad when I hit. And I do a lot of other wonders as well. So if you look at summation of all these things, there's a few interesting things that happen. But the more important thing is that I have better damage bonus against slow, shot, and stun enemies. I have better crit chance and strength against these enemies as well, which means that everything scales up very nicely. Last but not the least, don't forget your vulnerability. I think your passive already applied certain kind of like hit vulnerability. But if you manage to get some of this seasonal item, I believe this is Bane of the Unworthy is more of like a seasonal items. You know, keep some of them. It gives you a good generic vulnerability, which is a separate type on top of the hit vulnerability, which both have a cap to it. So it works very nicely, synergized with all the gear that I have here. All right, now that is really the end of it. I've like I said, I've done a lot of builds. And this is really to inspire, not to prescribe. You know, this game is a really good game, sandbox. You don't have to get exactly the same gear as mine, but you can always get things to put together to see if this is better or not. Try to get you know, higher and higher level, especially when it comes to Supreme Mission. And once you get there, I think, you know, you're sorted, and you can sit back, relax, and just farm a lot of glory, try to get the leaderboard to be as high as possible. It's probably the end game. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any question, drop me a comment below. I'll answer them. And if I found any update to the game that may affect this guide, I'll put it into the pinned comment as well. So yep, the Emperor protects. Bye bye.